Okay, everybody. I was going to go on to the next part of the tutorial on how I made and designed the whole Death Star part of the scene and creating the Death Star model, and I had everything recorded, and I was going to edit it down because I had about more than an hour of material and I wanted to boil it all down to a half an hour. I had it all put together in Premiere, and something happened with Creative Cloud and it crapped out, and then I'm just going to speed through this really fast, all the different aspects of this tutorial. It might take me a couple minutes, 10 minutes maybe at most. Just wanted to get a very basic idea of what I did because I want you to see at least something. Okay, in Cinema 4D, for the Death Star, I was going to go ahead and just create a half part or hemisphere of a sphere, and then do another version and just flip it upside down and then figure out how to put it in the dish. But I found that it was a little bit too difficult to do. It wasn't it really wasn't the best way to actually model this thing. So I mean, you can see what it was going to look like, and all the texturing that I did, and I only laid in what the camera was going to see. So it was basically just this part of, the hemisphere. No reason to do the whole entire, like, will this be one half of the sphere, because you would never have to see it. Very time consuming, especially just to figure it all out. So I've got a couple lights, one camera, moving in, rotating around it. But we'll get to that in a little bit. Here's what I did: subdivided it, made it editable. I don't know what I set this in terms of my subdivisions. I lowered it enough. Oh, here it is, right here, segments 36. Let me see. Added a subdivision. Here's what I originally brought it down to after once I made it editable. I wish I would have kept it as I kept it over here, even though it's a lot of geometry, but there's a lot of points that I could have pushed and pulled to be able to adhere my textures to, because I did this in a different way, adding my textures. Let me go back to it. Adding my textures as I did, almost like laying pieces of thin, rolled out pieces of clay and laying them on top of the sphere. That's how I did it. It was probably the best, most time-efficient way that I knew how to do this. Because you're trying to get the Death Star, the outer parts that I adhered, the thin layered rectangle parts, whatever these are on the Death Star, it was very hard to texture and make it look like this. And especially when you get close into it, it's supposed to be actually pieces of machinery and maybe buildings and stuff, which is really never clear on the Death Star. Who knows, maybe with Rogue One it shows it better, since, in Rogue One they're actually using a CG model instead of a matte painting, which is, let me see, which is what the original Death Star was, I think, at least for some of it. I think that was a model version right here, and this is what I used as my model to see how I would lay out the grids, the rows and the columns of these basic textures. So the first version I did, put in my dish, and I just did a baleen. I laid in a baleen, a cylinder I should say, made a baleen. Then that cut the hole for the dish. Of course that's invisible, the baleen is. And I created the dish. You can see how I laid in the cylinder there. Created the dish in different sections. What did I do? I probably cut part of it's been about a month, more than a month now since I've done this, so I forget exactly how I did it. But you kind of get the picture. Did a extrude inward for the Death Star trench. Did a lot of other things there, putting the docking bays, other geometry, just to kind of mix it up a bit. Oh, This is what I used as some of my texturing, which I got from textures.com. Just different metallic things that I would use, which actually looked really good. I think I used it for the overall Death Star model. I cut out these sections in Photoshop and used these as the textures for my for the parts that I laid out on top. And let me get, whoops, okay. Here's Death Star Model 2. Yeah, these are just concepts that I used, concept art. Of course, these are stills from the original movie, original Star Wars, the docking bay, the trench. That was really helpful. And we'll go back here. I'm speeding through a lot of this. I'm not going to be able to get deeply into this. I'm sorry about it. And I don't want to play to you all of these things. Like I said, we got more than an hour of material. Just a little bit about the array dish, or the reactor dish, whatever you want to call it. Put in stretched out some of the verts to make a hole there. Made different rings, parts of cylinders or spheres. I cut out, probably used a disc and just extruded that part out and fitted it into the dish, all the different sections. Did some extrusions, tried to shape up the geometry a bit, make it look more three-dimensional, not just like a few, cylinders and stuff. So that was pretty intense just to be able to get that to fit in there because it wasn't exactly circular with the angle of my cylinder into the baleen. Did a lot of extrusions again for the trench. Needed to mix it up, make it look as three-dimensional as possible. I don't know what I'm showing here. I think I might be showing my camera, how my camera kind of swooped in, just moved the position in, rotated it around, as you can see, and then going up or towards the Death Star, all in a way to match my scene from my original TIE Fighter model. And I think I got it pretty close. There's a lot of things that I did here to get this right. There's lighting inside each of the docking bay. What was I doing there? It's kind of hard to say. Oh, I guess I'm trying to show that some of the what I did with the texturing there. A lot of work on that. Most of it is are different pieces of rectangles that I cut out and extruded and laid on top of there and then textured. Let's see. Let me get to the tutorial 3. So you can see it was shaping up pretty nicely with the lighting that I had. And let's see. Of course, I have different versions of the models, just so if I made a mistake, I wouldn't, I could go back to a previous version. I did a lot of lighting, laid out my lighting on cloners, and did a NURB, a spline, laid on a cloner, and had on top of that was some for the lighting. I used discs, little discs, and set a material, set the luminous channel only. I believe that's what I did, to kind of a bright white. Here's some of the other textures that I did on top here. This is the basic skin or the hull of the Death Star. This is my I call it Death Star swatch. Just tiled it out, did a tile. I think, yeah, this is my main swatch that I used over the whole entire thing. And I mixed another one on there as well to give it more depth. And I think it came out pretty good. You can see all the lighting inside the docking bays, as well as around the Death Star, which was basically just, like I said, lighted up discs and rectangles or planes. Laid them out in a certain way to make it look more not so regular. Those are just some concepts, because I didn't really know how this was going to be laid out. I just kind of guessed at it, basing it on the original movie model. This one that I got, all these concept art I got on Google Images. But basically, all these little things I added on mine as well. These little chunks, these different parts of the trench. And there's a lot here. I'm not going to get into all this. The Death Star hull textures. These are all just cut out from that previous concept art that I had, and just lay that onto material. Did a lot of different things. Put in an alpha just to make it look. It was like it's more three-dimensional. Had a bump. Put in a bump. Did some different texturing in terms. Yeah, okay. So I did a tile effect on that, or a plank effect, just so you could see a lot of grooves and stuff like that. I really did a lot of experimentation with that. Bevel levels, the width, the grout levels, just to try to get it so when you came to a close up, it looked, like these were actual grid lines, metallic grid lines, or whatever the Death Star is actually made of. So, and I think that looked pretty good.